Bud Grant, the coach of the Minnesota Vikings, is another man who understands the value of experience. The captain of his team is Jim Marshall, number 70, a 37-year-old defensive end who is proof that an athlete can be both old and bold at the same time. Marshall has played in more consecutive games than any defensive player in the history of the NFL, and he is still one of the most relentless pass rushers in the league. Marshall's close friend and teammate for 12 years is 33-year-old Carl Eller, number 81. Like Marshall, Eller's skills seem undiminished by time, and he still merits double-team blocking in passing situations. Like most Viking veterans, Eller plays with the zest and gusto of a rookie, and his determined pursuit and hustle make him one of the game's most unique defenders. Eller and Marshall are a prominent part of the most opportunistic defense in the NFC. Making a mistake against the Vikings is like bleeding in front of a shark. The veteran Minnesota defense racked up one touchdown against the San Francisco 49ers, then turned the scoring chores over to another seemingly ageless teammate, Fran Tarkenton, number 10. 15 years ago, when Tarkenton began his pro career with these same Vikings, the experts of the NFL belittled his scrambling, undisciplined, almost haphazard style. Today, the critics are silent. By the time Tarkenton retires, he will probably hold almost every passing record in the book, eclipsing even those of John Unitas. As usual on Sunday, Tarkenton exhibited his remarkable ability to always find the hot receiver, as Minnesota calls the open man, or the cheap receiver, as San Francisco calls him. But there was nothing cheap about this beautifully executed play-action pass that Tarkenton fired to Brent McClanahan to wrap up a satisfying 27-17 win for Minnesota's proud old pros. Four of the wins were part of a 10-game season-opening win streak that virtually assured Minnesota of its 7th NFC Central Division title in the last 8 years. In an opening day victory over the 49ers, 27 points and 4 sacks in the first half alone showed the full range of Minnesota muscle. Either unit was capable of winning a game for the Vikings. The offense rolled up an insurmountable 42 points against Cleveland. The defense limited Chicago to 3 points 1 week later. Last Sunday, the defensive backs who deserved the most sympathy were Tony Peters and Clarence Scott, number 22 of the Cleveland Browns. For it was their task to guard one of the game's most dangerous receivers, John Gilliam, number 42. Scott held Gilliam to a modest 31 yards receiving, and Peters permitted Gilliam only 1 catch. But unfortunately for Peters, number 20, it was a 29-yard touchdown that opened the floodgates for a 42-10 Minnesota scoring wave. Three different Viking receivers went on to score touchdowns and prove that Minnesota has a many-splendored passing attack. But this week, almost every team had receivers whose skills were the springboard to victory. No two receivers are exactly alike, and each one must be defensed differently. In Minnesota, a wise old pro led the Vikings over an inexperienced Chicago Bear team, led by a confused Gary Huff at quarterback. While Huff suffered, the Vikings' superior offensive line gave Fran Tarkenton ample time to step up and deliver to his favorite receiver, John Gilliam, number 42. Near the goal line, Tarkenton didn't even bother to fake because he saw that Gilliam had an easy touchdown. Behind his mobile and effective offensive line, Fran Tarkenton threw for 2 more touchdowns, both to his underrated but sure-handed tight end, Stu Voigt, number 83. Number 4 and still counting with a win over the Jets. Another big day of offense. Against the Jets, another unit turned in a big play. A blocked punt that resulted in a safety, a key part of Minnesota's 29-21 victory.
Tarkenton negated these twisting, looping rushes by dumping quick passes to his own number 44, the multi-talented Chuck Foreman. Foreman turned these short passes into long gains, and eventually this strategy produced a pair of touchdowns by number 44. Foreman caught over 100 yards worth of passes and was so wide open that it seemed the Jets played with 10 men or Foreman vaporized in their secondary. Foreman's last touchdown resulted when number 25, Bob Prout, followed number 42, John Gilliam, through the Vikings formation. With 1 man less to block, Minnesota blasted Foreman to 6 points and a 29-21 victory.
Next came 3 consecutive interdivisional victories over Detroit, Chicago, and Green Bay as the Vikings stretched their string to 7 in a row and held a 4-game lead in the division.
The Purple punched out the Lions in Bloomington, Minnesota. Detroit was whipped at the snap and leg whipped at the point of attack. Number 88, Alan Page, led the ageless Viking front 4 by pillaging the pass pocket of Lion quarterback Bill Munson. At 240 pounds, number 88 is a small defensive tackle, but his sprinter's start slingshots him past the blocking cup. Page's running mate at tackle is Doug Sutherland, number 69, who disdains speed for sheer strength in sacking a quarterback. It was this strength that led directly to a safety for Minnesota. Sutherland slanted to his left and occupied 2 Detroit blockers. His massive diversion allowed number 27, Autry Beeman, an unmolested shot at Munson, and 2 points for Minnesota. Abetted by such supercharged defense, the Viking offense expended just enough energy to win. 2 Fran Tarkenton touchdown passes, 1 to setback Ed Marinero, were enough to gain victory as Minnesota remained unbeaten through 5 games.
Conference leading passer Fran Tarkenton had one of his better days, running that short passing game that is such an important part of any Bud Grant game plan. Tarkenton connected on 24 of 30 tries for almost 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. The first TD, a typical super simple play action roll right and flip on the run to his slow but sure-handed tight end Stu Voigt, number 83. The go-ahead touchdown came about on a 3rd and 14 play when everyone in Green Bay knew that Tarkenton would be throwing. But no one could stop the perfect pass which John Gilliam managed to hang on to for the score. The final scoring pass not only clinched the game for the league's only undefeated team, but it brought Tarkenton's touchdown total to 280, just 10 short of the all-time pro record held by John Unitas. Meanwhile, Detroit head coach Rick Forzano, a former assistant to the master Paul Brown, had an interesting problem in San Francisco. Due to multiple injuries, he had a team with no recognizable offensive players. After trailing 10-0 at the half, Forzano's makeshift offense came to life. Former 49er Joe Reed threw touchdown passes to wide receiver Ray Jarvis, number 45, and to a running back who accounted for 150 yards of total offense, Dexter Bussey, number 24. Forzano's Lions, despite everything, came back to win 28-17. In the NFC Central, there are only 2 coaches with winning records, Bud Grant and Rick Forzano of the Detroit Lions.
Atlanta fell 38-0, New Orleans 20-7 as the Vikings marched through the South. The San Diego Chargers were the club record 10th straight victim, which also gave the Vikings the longest win streak in the conference. During the streak, Minnesota outscored their opponents by 162 points, an average winning margin of over 16 points. For the season, the Vikings rolled up 377 points, 3rd best in the league, and yielded just 180, finishing best in the league in both rushing and passing yardage allowed. In the end, 10 straight opponents left the field shaking their heads. In just 10 games, the Vikings all but locked up the Central Division crown.
I was ready for this rain, said Bud Grant last Sunday. I was out Saturday an hour after sunrise, and the Ducks were heading south. Those same Ducks might have enjoyed Sunday's game in Metropolitan Stadium. Bud Grant may have been the first to state that offense sells tickets, but defense wins games. And his opportunistic Vikings are living proof. Number 50 middle linebacker Jeff Seaman is one of the best, and at age 25, he's still improving. The Vikings, in fact, are loaded with good young players just waiting for their chance. Last season, Doug Sutherland, number 69, got his chance, and now he's a seasoned quarterback chaser. As number 11, Atlanta's Ken McQuilkin said after last week's game, you can't be on top every week unless you're Minnesota. In all, the Vikings forced 8 turnovers, several of which wound up in the experienced hands of 12-year veteran Carl Eller. At age 33, Eller still pulls off some of the game's most remarkable plays. Sure, Marshall and Eller are old, and so is good whiskey. The fact is that the Vikings, who were 10th in the league in defense last year, are now number 1 in their conference in all major defensive categories. And they've complemented Fran Tarkenton's league-leading performance by allowing the fewest points in the NFL. Tarkenton, Foreman, and some other first-stringers can get plenty of rest, while old familiar-sounding names like Bob Lee and Dave Osborne get their names in the scoring column. The Vikings are 8-0, and now's as good a time as any to start preparing for the playoffs.
Fran Tarkenton and the Minnesota Vikings were on their way to their 9th straight in New Orleans. And although they are the only unbeaten team in pro football, sometimes even they can look almost as human as the Atlanta Falcons. Every receiver will occasionally drop the football, When it's John Gilliam and the quarterback is Fran Tarkenton, you can be fairly sure that amends will be made. Using Gilliam as his primary long threat, conference leading passer Fran Tarkenton completed 25 passes for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, leaving him just 13 completions and 6 touchdowns shy of the all-time records of John Unitas. And it is still possible for Fran to find a receiver in the end zone with no defenders within shouting distance. While Tarkenton's passing records are hot news these days, it's sometimes forgotten that he has also rushed for nearly 4,000 yards. And it's therefore all the more remarkable that he is one of the very few quarterbacks who has never missed a game due to injury. Tarkenton's counterpart last Sunday was Archie Manning of the Saints, also mobile, but bigger and stronger than Fran. The Saints did score 1 touchdown, but overall, the NFL's top-ranked defense held New Orleans to a grand total of just 60 yards of offense, a minus 7 yards passing. Most of the time, Archie's mobility was needed just to try and save his own skin. Eight times Archie was grounded by the voracious Vikings, who have now won 9 in a row. Next up are the San Diego Chargers, who have lost 9 in a row. The odds makers will have some fun with that one, and chances are, so will the people in purple. Meanwhile, in Minnesota, solemn Bud Grant surveyed the situation and finally saw something to smile about. The San Diego Chargers were in town. In the week's most dramatic contrast, Grant's 9-0 Vikings met the woeful 0-9 Chargers. San Diego had been consistently inept all season, but at times the inexperienced, aggressive defense has played tough. For most of the game, the angry young men went nose-to-nose with the mighty Vikings as the Chargers tried to salvage a measure of respectability from a lost season. The example inspired an outmatched San Diego offense. Veteran Gary Garrison, number 27, can still go to the flag like the good old days. But with callow quarterbacks like number 17, Jesse Freitas, the Chargers have to struggle for every point. Rookie Dwight McDonald, number 80, added another touchdown, but the Chargers could not rest easy because their opposition featured the most prolific passer in pro football history. Fran Tarkenton's pinpoint passing riddled the Chargers for 24 completions. During the game, Tarkenton equaled, then surpassed John Unitas in number of completions for a career, the first of many all-time records he will shatter between now and next year. But more importantly, Tarkenton's still polished skills make Minnesota the NFL's most consistent team, with important parts like Chuck Foreman, the NFC's leading rusher and receiver. Tarkenton and Foreman produce week after week, but in the chill of a Minnesota winter, true Viking fans call for defense. With the game still in doubt, 4th down and 8 inches from the San Diego touchdown, The old men of Minnesota rose up and held. In the game's turning point, 12-year veteran Carl Eller, number 81, had led a goal line stand with the exuberance of a rookie. In a week of contrasts, Minnesota's 28-13 victory preserved two perfect records. The 10-0 Vikings are on the high road to the NFL playoffs. The 0-10 Chargers tread a path to oblivion that may take them to the first non-winning season in modern pro football history. The Vikings' win streak would end in Washington, but the true character of a team often comes through as clearly in defeat as in victory. And that character was sorely tested as the Vikings fell behind 21-0. RFK Stadium rocked, but slowly, surely, each Viking drew deeply from Minnesota pride. There could still be victory with an inspired Viking comeback. From the doorstep of defeat, the Vikings had outscored the Redskins 30-3 and led 30-24. Suddenly trailing 31-30 after such a great comeback, a team of character digs deeper and summons yet more heart. The Vikings worked in close enough for a field goal try and summoned a man who has what many consider to be pro football's toughest job. But this time it wasn't to be for Fred Cox, a veteran of so many tense moments. This time his kick was deflected. No good. And the win streak was over. There would be no perfect season for the 1975 Vikings. A small thing, really, in light of the Vikings' impressive array of championships.
In Washington, D.C., the hometown Redskins were braced for a genuinely crucial game in this, the NFL's 11th week. After two straight overtime defeats, the Skins were matched against the league's last undefeated team, the Minnesota Vikings, led by the peerless Fran Tarkenton. This has been a storied season for Tarkenton. After 15 years without injury, the records are beginning to fall for Francis. Last Sunday, it was John Unitas' record for most pass completions in NFL history. Just over the horizon is the league record for most touchdown passes. He was just 5 short of Unitas coming into this game. Most important for Fran, the Vikings have breezed through their first 10 games, winning them all, but only one against the team with a winning record, Detroit. But because the Lions lost to Los Angeles on Thanksgiving, Minnesota has already clinched their 7th Central title in 8 years. As for the desperate Redskins, their fans can only look in vain, perhaps in search of the perfect spiral, but they won't find it. For Sonny number 9 is gone, and alone in the spotlight and practically held together with baling wire is Billy Kilmer, who somehow finds a way to win. Starting once again from deep in its own territory, Minnesota moves steadily upfield with short and medium passes in the seams of the Washington zone. Now everything was going the Vikings' way, and Chuck Foreman made his first contribution to the first half. With Washington's defense loosened by the passing barrage, Tarkenton turned to Ed Marinero, who took the ball straight up the middle, 14 yards to the Washington 3. From the 3, Tarkenton rolled right, spotted John Gilliam at the back of the end zone, and hit him with a cross-court pass for an apparent touchdown. Though Mike Bass' stinging tackle momentarily dislodged the ball, Gilliam obviously had possession long enough. But offensive interference was called on an unbelieving Gilliam, and Minnesota lost 10 yards and the touchdown. Gilliam was another of the Vikings' major offensive weapons stilled by the Washington defense so far. But he was anything but still in voicing his difference of opinion to the officials' ruling on this play. However, 2 plays later, with 9 seconds remaining, Tarkenton rolled right again and speared Chuck Foreman with a pass. Minnesota at last had their first score of the day. Maestro Francis Asbury Tarkenton began a virtuoso second-half performance on the Vikings' first possession. Rarely throwing from a fixed position, he would complete 6 of 7 passes on a 70-yard drive. Trailing by as much as they did, Minnesota would have to pass often. This brought number 49, Ed Marinero, into the game at running back, for he is an excellent receiver, as this catch will attest. Marinero would catch and carry for 47 yards on the drive, as Tarkenton stuck mainly with his backs, who handled 5 of the 6 Tarkenton completions of the possession. No quarterback has ever used his backs better. It is a tactic that Tarkenton has perfected. And why not, when one of your backs is the elusive Chuck Foreman? In today's game, Tarkenton also was fond of going to tight end Stu Voigt, who would lead all receivers with 8 catches, and this one was the only time that someone other than the center, Tarkenton himself, or his running backs would touch the ball on this drive. Finally, from the 3-yard line, Foreman scored his second touchdown of the game, and the Vikes now trail by only 7 points, when not too long ago they had been down by 21 yards, and then even slipped in a running play with Chuck Foreman. Foreman, who leads the NFC in receiving, is also a brilliant runner. Looking at the same play from up top, we can see that there was no hole on the left, so Foreman reversed, went right, and relied on his moves, one of which seemed to be made purely for his own enjoyment. Wide receivers and running plays had been added on this drive, but the key player was still Fran the Man, who was completing passes regardless of the situation in the pocket. Using a lot of play action and running around like he has since he was a rookie 15 years ago, Tarkenton completed 4 of 5 passes on this drive to bring his second-half stats to 10 completions in 12 throws. This drive eventually netted a field goal that cut the Redskin lead to 7 points. And 1 possession later, Tarkenton rolled to his right, saw lots of daylight, and rolled right into the end zone. Tarkenton's touchdown cut the lead to 1 point. but it stayed at 1 when Fred Cox missed the no longer automatic extra point. However, it hardly seemed to matter, for Fran Tarkenton was making the over-the-hill gang look like they were over the hill. Pass rush put him on his back. The Redskin playoff hopes were rapidly fading under an avalanche of Northman defense. And if their own defense could not stop Tarkenton's tactics, the 1975 season would be almost over for the Washington Redskins. The Skins did manage to control Chuck Foreman's running momentarily, so Tarkenton took to the air again and used Foreman in a different way. With a 3rd and 1 on the Redskin 31, Tarkenton went with Foreman, now a runner again, and Washington appeared dead. As so often happens in a short yardage situation, when and if the running back pops through the line, he can go a long way, and this is exactly what happened on this play. Notice that number 41, Mike Bass, a cornerback, was playing right on the line of scrimmage. Indeed, the whole Redskin defense was ganged along the line, and once Foreman got through that line, there was no one left to tackle him. The Vikings now led for the first time in the game, and also for the first time, Redskin partisans felt the season slipping away. The fourth completion went to Frank Grant for the touchdown, and Mark Mosley's point after brought back the smiles to Redskin faithful. Only 40 seconds were left when the Redskins went on top 31-30. But on the Vikings sideline, sinister forces were at work. Scramble forward, throw right to Brent McClanahan for 19 more. Then it was a roll left, throw left to Stu Voigt for 17 yards to the Washington 28. With 5 seconds left, a whole season would come down to one kick. For the Vikings, a successful kick meant a continuation of a perfect season. But that is merely frosting, for the Vikings are already playoff qualified. But for George Allen and the Redskins, a successful kick meant an almost impossible path to the playoffs and a virtual end to their season. Fred Cox lined up a 45-yarder that could be the final nail in the Redskins' coffin. Washington had survived as number 79, Ron McDowell, deflected the kick and saved the Redskins.
The playoff team was frolicking in quite a different environment. The Minnesota Vikings thrive on their wintry climate, which certainly has not slowed their 37-year-old defensive captain, Jim Marshall, number 70. The right side of the Viking defensive line still consists of Jim Marshall and Alan Page, number 88. And these are two reasons why the Green Bay Packers, who had scored 68 points in their 2 previous games, scored only 3 last week and had only 6 first downs all day. John Hadle and his replacement, Don Milan, could make almost no headway against the NFC's top-ranked defense. And conversely, the Packers could not stop the NFC's top-ranked offense. Number 44, Chuck Foreman, is on the verge of becoming Minnesota's first ever 1,000-yard runner and Pro Football's first ever Triple Crown winner, as he leads the NFC in rushing, receiving, and in scoring. There's another member of the Viking backfield who's having a pretty good season. Last week, Fran Tarkenton threw his 21st, 22nd, and 23rd touchdown passes of the year. 2 of them to number 42, John Gilliam, who was covered man for man by third-year cornerback Perry Smith. Said Gilliam after the game, "It was stupid. I don't know why they didn't give him any help. With an offensive line and a quarterback like ours, we made him look like a fool. I wish we could play Green Bay every week. They're the only team that really plays me honest. Fran Tarkenton found Gilliam for 7 of his 20 completions for the day. The Vikings are now 11-1, and Fran Tarkenton is just 1 short of John Unitas' lifetime record, 290 touchdown passes.
The key is not to look. The trials of youth, however, had little bearing on the Vikings-Lions contest in Detroit. There, the league's most elderly club encountered a go-for-broke Lion team that for a week at least rudely postponed Fran Tarkenton's destiny to break the NFL's all-time touchdown passing record. It was an unpleasant afternoon for the man who is inexorably taking his place as the NFL's all-time greatest quarterback, as 4 times the Lions roared in to thwart history in the making. The Lion defense showed its grit early as it beat back the Vikings at their own goal line's door. And soon after, what was to be touchdown number 290 for Fran became instead the first of 2 interceptions he would throw for the day. Number 23, Levi Johnson, was the interceptor, and in that instant, the idea of an upset became emblazoned in Detroit's mind. Riding the momentum of Johnson's turnover, the Detroit offense surged downfield, and quickly Joe Reed to number 43, Marlon Briscoe, gave the Lions first blood. Detroit then boldly played out their hand with a surprising and successful onside kick. And just 37 seconds later, number 33, Bobby Thompson, shot through a hole in the Viking line, and suddenly it was Lions 14, division champions nothing. But that was not the final surprise in a game full of unusual events. In the third quarter, the Vikings returned back at the goal once again, when number 35, Robert Miller, lost the ball, and Detroit's Lem Barney came up with a super play. "74 yards later, Barney had his team in go position, deep in Viking territory. But a short time later, Joe Reed's fumble put the Lions' afternoon of upset in serious jeopardy. Number 58, Wally Hilgenberg, scooped up the ball and then lateral to number 22, Paul Krause, who completed the 86-yard scoring play. But one Viking spectacular was not enough to squash Detroit's impassioned effort, as the Lions partially salved the wounds of a frustrating season with their 17-10 victory over arch-rival Minnesota.
Complete his pattern and was not where Ferguson expected him to be. Bobby Bryant's interception and run back put Minnesota in excellent field position. And Tarkenton, rather than throw difficult passes that required the good timing that this field did not permit, instead threw only short passes. Tarkenton's passes were even more safe in that if the intended receiver could not catch the pass, no one would. And when his receivers held on, they made good yardage against the league's most porous pass defense. Tarkenton, as usual, made great use of his running backs, Chuck Foreman and Ed Marinero, number 49, who between them are the first 2 running backs on the same team to combine for over 100 receptions. and have caught almost half of Tarkenton's passes for the entire season. Tarkenton passes accounted for 40 yards of the 60-yard drive that Foreman finished with a 4-yard smash around right end. Looking at Foreman's run from up top, we can see there was a hole over right tackle, but Foreman then broke outside and broke 3 tackles, making his run much more than a mere 4-yard touchdown run. Foreman's 19th touchdown of the year brought him to 999 yards rushing. He would soon go over 1,000, and the Vikings led 7-0. Bills were unable to move on their second series of the game when Simpson made fakes worthy of a 50-yard run, but wound up with -9 yards when Terry Brown came from his safety spot to nail O.J. down. Simpson's 2,000 yards never seemed so far away. But more importantly, with Simpson under wraps, Ferguson was forced to throw more often. And a second-period interception set up another Viking score when Ferguson hit the only man who was open, Viking defensive back Terry Brown. Simpson and the rest of the highest-scoring offense in the league would be held in check for most of the half. But Minnesota's score would not come easily, for the Bills' much-maligned defense got tough after the turnover. Tarkenton's short passing game was stopped at least this once, and Tark himself was stopped by blitzing bulldogger Tom Rood. But faced with a 3rd and 20, Tarkenton put up a clutch pass, and John Gilliam, silent until now, made an unbelievably clutch catch. Looking at the play from player level, we can see that Gilliam was racked up by Ike Thomas and Tony Green, who shook the ball loose, and that Gilliam reclaimed it before he or the ball hit the ground. Several plays later, Foreman got touchdown number 20 of the season, and the Vikings had used 2 Ferguson interceptions to put 2 touchdowns on the board. But the Vikings' points weren't all Buffalo mistake-fused. In the first period, Tarkenton had moved the Vikings 67 yards following a punt. On a 3rd and 10, he sent Foreman, number 44, swinging left. But this time he ignored him, stepped up in the pocket, and hit Jim Lash for a first down. Later in the drive, Tark was screening again, but again ignoring his running backs and hitting tight end Stu Voigt. From the 7, Foreman burst over right guard and headed for touchdown number 21. But Foreman came out of the pack without the ball. Fortunately for the Vikes, Lash recovered the fumble in the end zone for a touchdown. Minnesota had its 3rd touchdown of the game, and on a replay we can see why Foreman did not also get his 3rd touchdown of the game. When Pat Toomey hit Foreman, the ball popped out. Buffalo's Tom Rood had a chance to save the Bills, but Lash beat him to the ball. The Vikings had 21 points before Buffalo ever got on the board. foot by bowling 15 yards straight up the middle of the Bills' beleaguered defense. After a pass from Tarkenton to Jim Lash was just barely incomplete, the focus fell on Chuck Foreman. With his team record of 1,000 yards already accomplished in the first half, Foreman was concentrating on his two other personal goals: the first Triple Crown in NFL history and Gale Sayers' touchdown record of 22. At this point, Foreman had 20. After personally taking the ball to the 1-yard line, Foreman got touchdown number 21, his third of the game. But even more significant, it was the 290th career touchdown pass thrown by Fran Tarkenton. And as we see it again, with Foreman fighting his way into the end zone, two of the great records in pro football were in jeopardy at the same time. Trailing now by 21 points, the luckless Bills turned the game into a rout by fumbling on the next series. Nation went right back to work carving up the Buffalo papier-mâché defense. For a rare moment, the scenario departed from the ubiquitous Foreman when Tarkenton threw to Jim Lash for 15 yards at the 6. Foreman was not in the game at the time, for he had been hit by one of the many snowballs swirling through the air. In fact, the Vikings seemed to have more difficulty dodging snowballs, or more precisely ice balls, than they did avoiding the opposing team. Foreman was properly angry about the situation, for though he missed only 2 plays, he suffered from blurred vision the rest of the game. At one point, a snowball hit Tarkenton on the helmet as he was throwing, and he tucked in the ball thinking it was a lineman's hand hitting his helmet. But Foreman and the Vikes got revenge the best possible way. From the 6, Fran Tarkenton rolled right and threw to Foreman, who went in for touchdown number 4. But the play and the day belonged to Fran Tarkenton, for it was touchdown pass number 291, breaking the record held by the man that most consider to be the greatest quarterback of them all. Let us relive the historic moment when John Unitas' record was broken. With the score risen to 35-7, they were all often and long, and almost always without success. On the Minnesota side of the field, the scene was one of joy and laughter. The Vikings had won their 12th game. Their quarterback, Fran Tarkenton, had earned a cherished spot in history. And Chuck Foreman scored 4 touchdowns and had what must be a new record for sharing a record the shortest time. For one play after earning his 22nd touchdown, O.J. Simpson scored his record-breaking 23rd.
A little bit more. 2nd and 10. He's in the pocket again, and he just got by Jethro Pugh at the 35, 40. Gets the first down. Jethro Pugh missed him by an eyelash, or he'd be clearing the box seat somewhere.
Well, that did go to Gilliam, but ball was thrown just a little bit short.
Third down, 9 from the 45. Marinero in motion. Brand going to Lash, and Lash has got it. Now Renfro there on him, and he won't go down. Jim Lash, the former Northwestern standout, a third-year man, has the first down to the Dallas 40-yard line. Some changes defensively for the Cowboys. Tarkenton back again. Gilliam at the 25-yard line. Nope, he did not have both feet in bounds. Gilliam did not get both feet in.
Well, he made the catch, but he bobbled the ball as his one leg went out. And that is an incomplete pass.
This time from his own 43. Again, he goes for the corner. This one's a high one. Harris is back. Boy, he almost got hit by it. And it looks like the Cowboy touched it. Fred McNeil picked it up. They're going to rule it down at the 4-yard line. We'll have to look at that one again. Flying over there in a hurry on that play was Pat Donovan, it looked like. And then McNeil picked it up, but I believe Donovan might have touched it. First and goal now for Minnesota. I give to Foreman. Foreman hit as Leroy Jordan was there. Jordan played remarkable football this year. There's been some talk it might be his last year. Second and goal at the 3. Tarkenton going to try to carry it in. And he's a yard short. Brand just on a quarterback rollout that time. And I saw you shaking your head, John. Trying to drive in. And in for the touchdown. The Vikings fighting in. Chuck Foreman able to bring it in. And they take a 6-0 lead as Foreman, who had 22 touchdowns in the regular season of play, gets the first here this afternoon.
That's the guy you want to give it to right there, Foreman or Marinero. Just get behind that good offensive line and blow them out or get up over the top, whichever way you can.
In motion comes Gene Fugit. A give to Newhouse. And look who's there. Carl Eller again. Eller has been devastating in this first half. Oh, almost a 7-yard pickup. Tarkenton. Chuck Foreman, he's got the first down to the 43-yard line. Chuck Foreman, Al Renfro and Cliff Harris combining on the tackle. Minutes to go in this game. 10-7, the Cowboys leading it. This is Marinero. Marinero can't get up the field as P.D. Lewis drops it at the 45, and it's up and down. And a long 7. Foreman. Look at him, nice across the 50. Beautiful run by Chuck Foreman. Here we go. Third down a foot. Marinero in motion. Ran to Marinero. Well, that was easy, wasn't it? A first down. Brand to Foreman. Foreman makes the move. Gets away from Peterson to the 30. He's got a first down to the 29. Charlie Waters made the stop, but it was Calvin Peterson that got a hand on him, and that was all as Foreman got away from him. McClanahan now in along with Chuck Foreman. There is a reverse action to McClanahan. To the 30, 25, to the 20. He's to the 17, another first down. 6 minutes, 49 seconds left. Chuck Foreman to the 10, Foreman to the 5. And it looks like he has another first down. It'll be first and goal. First and goal just outside the 5. Chuck Foreman again. He slips, but he's still on his feet. Chuck Foreman looks like he's about a yard away. Tarkenton asking for some quiet. Brand giving up. McClanahan, and he's in.